Come on up. Hopefully over the course of the next 2 or 3 hours we'll change the way you look at defensive tactics a little bit. Sometimes when you think of defensive tactics, and honestly a lot of times it is martial arts. You'll either have a jiu-jitsu guy come in and this is self-defense. Thai boxing guy, this is self-defense. A Kali guy, this is self-defense. And coming from a guy that's done a lot of it over 44 years, it's not. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I made a career out of it. But, my job is to come here today and give you truth. So I might be a little hard on a few martial arts. It doesn't mean I don't love them and I go to them for sources of information. But we've got to build something that works for you, everyone in the room. So one of the first principles I want to introduce, I call the combat blueprint. One of the reasons for this blueprint is to avoid systemization, which is something that will commonly happen in a martial arts school. You can go in, might not know anything about martial arts, the jiu-jitsu guy, hey, come join. And this is the best stuff in the world. It'll solve all your problems. And then 2 years later, after immersing in that environment, we're having a conversation, and what I will normally get is all fights go to the ground. Yeah. Not all fights go to the ground. Some of them do, but that's called systemization. You will absorb the belief system of what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And so who put those belief systems or thought patterns in that art? The guy that created it X amount of years ago. And sometimes this will happen to you without your knowledge. And I like to point that out because if you know that, you go, if I do that training, I can avoid that. Or if I'm already on that path, wait a minute, do I do that? So the blueprint is an attempt to go above martial arts. Let's get a 1,000-mile view. And we'll just look at human combat. There are certain things that happen when 1, 2, 3, 4 people get together and we're not happy with each other. And they're called primal environments. A primal environment is something that people will do, trained or untrained. Firearms is one of the first ones. You don't necessarily have to have training to recognize that and know what it is and walk over and pick it up and use it. Now, I might not be very good at it, but you can see videos all the time on YouTube of people who have no clue what they're doing with it. Probably shouldn't even have the thing, but they're out there doing it. It's wired into human nature. The next thing in would be edged or blunt weaponry. I had a video sent to me, law enforcement officer, they're in a processing room and they left a pen on the table. As the threat came in the room, he picked it up and he tried to stab the officer with it. He had years of knife training. Probably not. He recognizes it as a human machine, knows its potential, and picks it up and uses it. It's hardwired in there. It's primal. Same thing with blunt instruments. You see people all the time, they'll grab something in a violent encounter, pick it up and use it. Could be a rock. And go back to the beginning of man. At some point, some caveman picked it up and it gave him an advantage. And hardwired in. Next thing in is striking. Pretty obvious. People do it all the time, trained and untrained. It looks better if you've had some training. Right. It might not look so good if they don't, but you still do it. Pummeling range, which is standing grappling or hugging. We watched a couple of boxing matches last night leading up to the big event. And, these guys are in the ring, they're punching each other, and they kept getting close to each other and wanting to drive their head in and smother. And then they had to put a guy in the ring with them to go, hey guys, this is not part of boxing. We don't hug each other in boxing. You hit each other. Stop doing it. You're professionals. Why do they keep doing it? It's human nature. It's part of what the primal machine does. And then the next one in is ground, because gravity is not just a good idea, it's the law. If you ever tripped and fell, ended up on the ground, right? So it's something that can happen in a violent exchange. So There are martial arts that are related to these. Now, there are some martial arts out there that are kind of in the middle of these. An example would be like Wing Chun. I love it, done it for 30-something years. They do trapping, they try to trap the hands. You have to be trained to do that. It's not a natural reaction. Joint locking, different systems that you have to be trained to do that. It's not something somebody who's never had training will do. And we want to know that because if we're aware of these common environments, we could say, you know, I need some information in all of those, at least something, an answer in case I get thrust into those situations, because it's so likely to happen. So one of the more popular ones right now is ground. Each one of these you can subdivide. And this is important because what's the flavor of the decade? Almost the last 2 decades? Grappling. And these are multiple options that could happen after gravity has pulled us into its world. What is one of the things that we end up doing down there? Anybody? We got any martial artists in the room?
Submissions.
Which is part of?
Grappling.
Grappling. That's probably the most common answer right now. What else can happen down there?
Punches. Strikes.
I agree with that.
Ground and pounds.
Okay, so what I want to do here is just kind of give you an idea of the different things you could find down there, because one of the things knowledge of this will do will allow you to take a trained person out of their element. You know, if I know they're a grappler, I might change the game a little bit so I can cheat, because what is war arts? I want to cheat and win.
Right.
So somebody called grappling. I had to divide this, and so to me, grappling has 2 parts. About 17 years ago, I started putting on a kit, and I started training everything. This is my kit. There are many like it, but this one is mine. So I put this on with my jiu-jitsu guys, my catch wrestling guys, my submission wrestling guys, my Greco guys that I work with, and I told all of them, hey, if you can pull any of these out and point them at me, it's a tap. You win. And it changed my world. Actually, I had to go back and change everything, all the way back to the fundamental basics that I started in the beginning. And what I came to find is it became an entirely different study, almost an entirely different martial art. That turned into a huge curriculum for me. So I just want to make you aware of that, because that's important. What kind of environment are we working on? What do we get to do with Coach Ed tomorrow? We get to text people. That's right. We're going to play some pew-pew, right? And some of you may be of the mind to carry something. That's pretty important that your combative plan involve that, right? Protect it, keep it from the bad guy, allow you to access it in moments of violent exchange. So the next area of study that you can do is called anti-grappling. This does not make me popular with jiu-jitsu guys. Anti-grappling is the study of grappling. I want to know what they need so that I can use it against them. And once you start looking at that, they give you what you need. It's very interesting study. The next one is ground fighting. Somebody said punching and kicking. That is an entirely different study. Can it mix? Definitely. But the structure of how you move, especially when you take this into consideration as well, because this fits into all of these, changes. And that's important to know. Next is dog boxing. Dog boxing is out of position fighting. An example of that, if I have a Thai boxer, you guys familiar with Thai boxers? Or let's say a boxer. Everybody laughed at the boxing match. So everybody's familiar with boxing. If I'm in the parking lot between 2 vehicles and a boxer comes and he starts to show me his game, and I'm like, oh, he's a boxer. So I'm going to take him out of his element. I'm going to dive in on him, grab him, pick him up, slam him on the hood, and start wailing on him in the face. What's happening in his mind?
Do this, I'm a boxer.
Right.
That's
Okay.
not boxing.
Right. But and also
Who's going to ring the bell? Next round.
he might also think I've got to do something.
Right.
I need to get back to what I know. This is what my teacher taught me. I got to get off this hood, get on my feet. I need to get a fighting measure because that's where I start things, and then I'm back in my game, right? You grab a dog boxer and do that to him, it's home to him because he trains out of position. Standing, squatting, kneeling, sitting, laying in multiple different environments. It's like the gentleman leaning against the wall here. What if I go start a fight with him right there? That's kind of out of position for some people. Squatting, that would be considered out of position to start a fight. But if you've trained it, you're at home. You're like, come into my world. A common example of this is vehicles. Somebody trying to carjack you, take you out of the car, take a loved one out of the car on the other side. You might not be used to dealing with that environment. Dog boxers or out of position fighting does. And it's a very, you would think, man, why don't systems do more of this? They don't. And to me, it's a subsystem. And it's on this list because most people consider ground out of position. You can really find it in all of these. And then the last one, this is kind of becoming more popular or a type of it lately. It'd be weapons-based grappling. You guys seen any of that on YouTube? They got a couple of nodding heads. Yeah. So they take a gun, they take a training gun, and they throw it in there and grapple with it. Now, it's not that that's bad. You should play those ideas, but like if I'm on my feet with Coach Ed, and we're getting ready to have a standoff, right?
Oh boy.
What do I want? You know, we'll say it started in a social exchange because this is where it starts most of the time. Hey, I might have spilled his beer. Hey, just relax. I don't want any trouble. And in his mind, he's like, that's a guy. I'm going to shoot him.
Yeah.
So the first thing I need is space, right? I'm like, I'd like to have distance, maybe a superior angle, and I want to be ahead of time, like two gunslingers. If I can get this out first, that's good for me. So I need space, angle, and time. How do I get that grappling? You don't. Not at all. It's you kind of go, well, why don't people do that? That's why it's written this way, grounded weapons fighting. Because what do we want to do? Why do I want to do that with Coach? Because I want to cheat and win. So the same game has to be achieved down there. I've got to be able to make space, superior angle, and get to my weapon system sooner. See how it's different if we sit and think? It's not just throw a gun into jiu-jitsu. Not that that's bad. At least it's something. But one of the things that will set you ahead in this game is stopping and thinking for a second. Using those mind tools to put yourself ahead of everybody else out there. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. So I had to write this up here because in the last 6 months, clinch, and you'll see this in Thai boxing, they'll hold each other's heads, is starting to me become a primal environment, and it's because of this. Because you can stand and grapple for a gun. Like if we started in an environment, you see Coach walk at me, and I kind of got a little bit of aggressive nature too. I'm like, okay. So we were on our way to having a standing grappling match with guns on. See what's about to happen. And so the more I do this with my guys, I'm that nut that's been a full-time martial artist since 1990. I was fortunate enough to have a staff of about 4 people since 95. And it's not because I need them to run things, it's because I want to train. So I'll be like, bring your guns, come in, we're going to do this today. And then how often did it work? How often did it not work? Did it work for Iris, who's about this big? Did it work for Big John, who is almost 400 pounds? And that's what makes my list that I teach. Questions on the combat blueprint? Does that mind tool help a little? Yeah. Because the stuff we're going to do today, we're going to kind of fit it on top of this. We're going to go, I'd like to have some of that.